We're preparing our live stream on YouTube. It's just taken a couple of seconds. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you can hear me and see me. Good morning from Sofia. I'm Jordan Buzilov, President of Sofia Security Forum, and I'm extremely pleased to welcome this very large audience at Zoom and YouTube. But before we start, I would like to ask you to mute your microphones so there will be no interference with the speakers. After the presentations, I will have the opportunity, give you the opportunity for discussions, questions and answers. So you can use your chat box or by raising hand. There's people who are in Zoom. You have this option in the lower corner of your monitors. I think that the topic we are discussing today is very important one. We are discussing what is the potential of the artificial intelligence to transform different spheres of our life. And as you can see, we have invited renowned speakers from Bulgaria and Spain. And this is not an incident. With this event, we want to mark the 110th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Bulgaria and the Kingdom of Spain. And I would like to welcome the ambassador of Kingdom of Spain and the representative of our Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And now I would like to give the floor Ms. Christiana Hristova from Bulgarian Ministry of Foreign Affairs to read a congratulatory address on behalf of the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Bulgaria. Please, Christiana.
Your Excellency, Mr. Alejandro Polanco-Mata, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I will read a congratulatory letter on behalf of the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Bulgaria, Mr. Svetlan Stoev. Your Excellency, Mr. Alejandro Polanco-Mata, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor for me to welcome warmly all the participants at this international webinar, The Transformational Potential of Artificial Intelligence, another event dedicated to 110th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between the Republic of Bulgaria and the Kingdom of Spain in 2020. Because of the COVID-19 crisis in 2021, we continue to celebrate with different events related to the excellent partnership between our countries. In recent years, Bulgaria and Spain shared the idea of organizing forums in priority sectors with the aim to enhance the contacts between representatives of both countries, including in the field of security. I believe this webinar is an unequivocal evidence of the desire to find new tools to deepen our cooperation in this very important area. Artificial intelligence is a significant and inseparable element of the future of human civilization, and the exchange of views and positions is particularly important in the context of challenging European and international agenda. The current situation in Europe and all over the world, caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, shows how important constructive cooperation and solidarity are. Bulgaria and Spain can be an example of excellent partnership and friendly relations, both bilaterally and internationally, proved through the years. We maintain active contacts at all levels, and in the recent years, they have been rich, dynamic, and diverse. Both countries are successors of centuries-old civilizations, known since ancient times, and they contribute to the cultural and spiritual formation of modern European civilization. The good bilateral relationship gives us the opportunity to develop our relations in the field of economy, investment, ecology, biotechnology, and the use of alternative energy sources. I am confident that the good dialogue between our two countries is a solid basis to increase and to deepen our cooperation in all current issues of mutual interest, including in the field of science and research. I am deeply convinced that events like the one we are having today will continue to be among the best contributions for the mutual rapprochement and deepening of the Bulgarian-Spanish friendship. I would like to confirm my expectations for maintaining the priority character of Bulgarian-Spanish dialogue and its contribution for a stronger, secure, and more solidary Europe. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Dr. Christova, for addressing the audience on behalf of the Minister of Defense. And now it is a great pleasure to invite the Ambassador of the Kingdom of Spain, His Excellency Alejandro Polanco Mata, for his welcoming words. And once again, Your Excellency, thank you very much for cooperating with us, for working together with Sofia Security Forum, actually to make this event happening. Ambassador, please.
Thank you very much for your words, Jordan, and good morning to everybody. I would like to thank first very sincerely the Sofia Security Forum for his support and readiness to prepare this seminar on artificial intelligence, and very especially to you for your personal engagement for this initiative. This initiative is an important one. It takes place on the general framework of those commemoration of 110th anniversary of diplomatic relations. And I have to say that today, relations between both countries are excellent on different sectors: economic, political, cultural, almost everything. But we wanted to work more and to do it also excellent in the scientific field. And this is what we are doing today, because this is important. Your tradition on the scientific camp is important, our tradition too, and we saw an opportunity, strong opportunity to work together in this field. But I would like to mention very especially the support of the Bulgarian institutions to this event, in general to the celebration of the 110th anniversary, but very specifically to this event. And this made possible this seminar. I think that the welcoming address of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Stoev, is a very important and significant signal. And I wanted also to thank the participation of and speeches of Cristiana Kristova and Mariana Tudorova from the Academy of Science. And those are institutions we want to work together with, and those are institutions important. Of course, from the Spanish side, I would like to thank very much the institutions that had accepted to participate in this seminar: the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Defense, as well as the Spanish National Research Council. And very especially a good friend, but at the same time a very competent man who is going to be the representative of the ministry, which is the ambassador at large for cybersecurity issues, Mr. Nicolás Pascual de la Parte. I'm very happy that he is going to participate with us. But I wanted to mention that Spain has given to scientific cooperation with Bulgaria an important role, and this is not new. Since many years, more than 20 years, we are working in this field with Bulgarian institutions, and I wanted to mention very specifically this cooperation in the Antarctic continent. Since years, both bases, Bulgaria-based and Spanish-based in the Antarctic, they are working together. And this work together is producing cooperation, scientific cooperation, and also seminars and celebrations. And I wanted to mention that in this month of December, we will have the occasion in Sofia to celebrate the anniversary of the treaty, the Protocol of Madrid on protection of this continent. And this is important. Now, in the work of the embassy in Bulgaria, we are developing new areas of contact and bilateral development. And I wanted to mention, because they have this relation with scientific cooperation, particularly smart cities. We have in the next weeks a seminar on this, Green Deal, defense systems, and today, artificial intelligence. All those are items that deserve attention and where we think that the bilateral cooperation between Bulgarian and Spanish experts has a big possibility of good results. I do hope that these discussions today about the different applications and effects on developing artificial intelligence in our today's societies will be of interest for all the participants. I'm sure that will be very beneficial for both countries. Thank you very much, and especially to you for this initiative. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ambassador, for addressing this very large audience today. Indeed, relations between our two countries are extremely positive and fruitful. And now I want to get to the core of our discussion. As I mentioned, we'll discuss the issue of the transforming effect of the artificial intelligence. And there are, of course, many events dedicated to the artificial intelligence going on almost every day. A Sofia Security Forum organized almost 2 weeks ago, another event on artificial intelligence on the influence of international relations, diplomacy, and security. And today's discussion actually is a continuation of the discussion. As you know, many countries and organizations already adopted AI strategies. Mostly with the idea of supporting the development of AI-based systems and solutions, but also to reflect the global discussion on ethical and legal issues, on responsible use of AI, of human control, etc., etc., etc. And I'm pretty sure that our speakers will touch on these aspects today as well. But what I also think will be extremely useful for our audience if speakers share also good practices in their respective countries. And there are several questions which comes to my mind in this aspect, because as again, we are discussing how artificial intelligence will transform our societies, our lives. And one of the questions is, what is the coordination at national level? If there is such coordination at national level, which will streamline the efforts to develop AI-based solutions and systems. The second question, which will be interesting, are there tools, financial, organizational, etc., 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 to support companies, universities, or individuals to develop AI-based systems? Another question which I think is extremely important, especially for my country, Bulgaria. Are there structures or individual experts, say in the Ministry of Defense or other ministries, to analyze how different activities will be changed by applying AI-enabled systems? Are there structures which analyze actually what our allies and partners do in this sphere, but also to analyze what are the achievements of our competitors, if you wish, because it seems to me important, especially in the military sphere, because I think I myself worked for more than 20 years in Bulgarian Ministry of Defense, and I see what is the potential of the AI to transform military sphere, and I believe this might be a next revolution in military domain. We can expect drastic improvement of operations, support of complex decision-making process, strategic planning, medical care, logistics, cybersecurity. We'll speak about cybersecurity today. Training. Our soldiers are already trained by, using virtual realities or augmented reality, etc., etc., etc. So there are many questions which I would like to touch upon today with our speakers, but also with the audience. Now, before further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Cristiana Hristova, who will speak on mainly on development of AI on the international arena and within international organizations like EU, Nato, etc., etc., etc. So thank you once again for joining us, and I'm looking forward to a very interesting discussion. So Cristiana, it is your time now, please, for presenting what you have to present to us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Buzilov. I will deliver short introductory remarks. Distinguished guests, the new technological developments over the last decades are undoubtedly one of the driving forces behind the rapid change of the global security environment. The evolution of emerging and disruptive technologies, with artificial intelligence at their heart, has direct implications and a profound impact on international relations, the political and military area. To cite one recent research paper, artificial intelligence is bound to have far-reaching consequences in every corner of our life, and diplomacy, international relations, politics, and military affairs cannot escape its gravitational pull. To assess the transformational impact of artificial intelligence on those fields, it is important to answer a lot of questions, such as what does artificial intelligence mean? How does it work? How does it change our decision-making process? What kind of risks and benefits are associated with it? However, there is no doubt that the transformational potential of artificial intelligence creates the preconditions for cognitive superiority, improved effectiveness, and speed. In view of this, societies need to make informed decisions regarding the use of and application of artificial intelligence. In recent years, we have been witnessing accelerated AI development initiatives across countries and the release of national strategic plans related to the use and implementation of artificial intelligence. Moreover, artificial intelligence is being increasingly regulated at international level, with lots of international strategies, overarching approaches, memoranda of understanding, task forces, and other international mechanisms related to the use of artificial intelligence. Against this background, in December 2020, the Bulgarian government published a national AI strategy, which presents policy initiatives for the development of artificial intelligence for the period up to 2030. It identifies main areas of impact, such as infrastructure and data availability, research and innovation capacity, knowledge and skills, and building trust in society. In addition, the strategy foresees policies to raise citizens' awareness on both the benefits and risks of artificial intelligence. Distinguished guests, looking back at the 20th century, it's reasonable to say that comparative technological advantages were easily translated into superiority on the battlefield. Development, sharing, and use of technologies were primarily a state affair, and they were tightly controlled. Since then, especially since the end of the Cold War, we have seen a number of changes, especially regarding the development and proliferation of technologies. I think we all agree that the use of technologies depends on the values and the behavior of people who are exploiting them. This leads in turn to the question of human responsibility. While the use of artificial intelligence has the capacity to generate substantive benefits in numerous domains and can offer promising opportunities for mankind, it also bears significant risks, especially with regard to the abuse of human rights and undermining the principles of democracy, rule of law, and the international rules based order. Against this background, international organizations have been in a process of constant transformation and adaptation in order to be prepared to adequately respond to these challenges, including in the field of security. Taking a closer look at NATO, in 2020, allies adopted the NATO 2030 initiative, which is about making sure that the alliance remains ready to face tomorrow's challenges, not least in the technological area. Promoting transatlantic cooperation on critical technologies is a vital component of that work. With a view to maintaining the credibility of NATO's deterrence and defense posture, over the last years, allies adopted a clear approach for identifying, developing, and adopting emerging and disruptive technologies, guided by the principles of responsible use and in accordance with international law and discussed in international fora. Building upon this, at the last NATO summit on the 14th of June this year, allies decided to launch a Defense Innovation Accelerator for the North Atlantic, the so-called DIANA, and to create a NATO Innovation Fund. The rationale behind this is not only the need for NATO to continue to maintain the intellectual and technological superiority over potential adversaries for defense and deterrence, but also to support NATO's enduring purpose to safeguard the freedom and security of all its members. One important objective of DIANA is also to bridge and close the technological gap among allies through innovation and industrial cooperation, which is a key for maintaining our interoperability and cohesion. In support of these objectives, Bulgaria has offered to host within DIANA a test center for big data and also a test center for artificial intelligence. It is also worth mentioning that at the last meeting of defense ministers of NATO on the 21st, 22nd of October, allies adopted the first artificial intelligence strategy of NATO. Allow me to elaborate on this strategy. The strategy provides a foundation for NATO and allies to lead by example and to encourage development and use of artificial intelligence in a responsible manner for allied defense and security purposes. The strategy seeks to accelerate and mainstream artificial intelligence adoption, capability development, and delivery to enhance interoperability within the alliance, and also to identify and safeguard against the threats from malicious use of artificial intelligence by state and non-state actors. Beside this, the strategy delineates principles of responsible use of artificial intelligence as follows: lawfulness and compliance with national and international law, responsibility and accountability, explainability and traceability, including verification, assessment, and validation mechanisms at either NATO or national level, reliability, including in terms of safety, security, and robustness, governability, so as to follow for disengagement or deactivation of systems in case of unintended behavior, and finally, bias mitigation, in order to minimize any unintended bias in the development and use of AI applications and in data sets. However, even if we have this strategy, which is, of course, an important step forward, we still need to develop innovative and effective partnerships with industry and academia, allowing for faster paced research and adopting game-changing technologies at the speed of relevance. This includes working together to understand the milli-modernization of our adversaries and to preserve our technological edge as well. Emerging and disruptive technologies with artificial intelligence at their heart is also part of NATO's debate on resilience and is expected to feature in the next strategic concept. With the European Union also engaged with a strategic compass, we have the opportunity to further reflect on NATO-EU cooperation in the field of emerging and disruptive technologies and artificial intelligence. In concluding, diplomacy, although traditionally conventional, is adapting in a systemic way to artificial intelligence, cautiously using its tools, but most importantly, in providing the platform to trigger debate and engage states and international organizations such as the UN, NATO, and the European Union with this variegated topic. The AI topic is starting to feature prominently international agendas, and will increasingly engage our attention. The need is to have AI, which is developed, deployed, and used responsibly in a manner that increases our security and defense, and in this way supports existing laws and democratic rules. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. These were my introductory remarks. I wish the conference every success. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Christiana, very much. You outlined very important issues related, firstly, to the approach and adoption to strategies. But what I think is very important, how to move from strategies to real application, to real development of AI-enabled solutions and systems. And now it's great pleasure to invite Ambassador Nicolás de la Parte, Ambassador at Large for Cybersecurity Issues in the Spanish Ministry of Defense, who will speak about AI and geopolitics. I am impressed that in the Spanish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, there is such a high level person who is dealing with this very important issues. And now Mr. Nicolás de la Parte will share his experience and also the experience of the Spanish Ministry of Defense in this sphere. Please, Mr. Nicolás de la Parte. Only I ask you just to unmute. Yes.
Thank you very much. It's okay now?
Yes, it is okay now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jordan Botsilov, for your presentation. And indeed, my thanks go as well to the Sofia Security Forum. I think that these kind of events are very useful for Spain and for Bulgaria. And I take the advantage of this opportunity to congratulate you and also ourselves for the centenary of engaging in diplomatic relations 100 years ago. I also take the advantage to salute to my good colleague and good friend, the Spanish Ambassador, Alejandro Polanco. Thank you again for inviting me, and let me to focus on the issue that you have invited me to talk about. In principle, I agree entirely with what my predecessor has been saying, Christina, concerning the dual use, civil and military use and applications of artificial intelligence. I think that before we go down the road in order to see which are these applications and the potentialities, the transformational potentialities of artificial intelligence, I like to distinguish between enabling and instrumental disrupting technologies and finalist technologies, because I think it's important to make this distinction. When I talk about enabling and instrumental disruptive technologies, I am referring to Internet of Things, or to the data in the cloud, or to the 5G mobile technology, or the quantum computing. That means this technology that allow us to reach a certain objective. But artificial intelligence, by contrast, it is not an enabling technology. It is a finalist technology, because the country or the stakeholder which holds this technology will dictate our way of life, our current and our future way of life. That's why I think that the development and applications of practical uses of artificial intelligence will decide in the next decades the winner and the loser of the digital age and of the competition on this field, especially the United States of America and China. The one which arrives first to a useful application, military and civilian application of artificial intelligence technology, will be the winner of the race. That's why it's so important to talk about that. I think that we have to agree, we could agree that there are three different approaches to artificial intelligence. The approach carried out by China, which places the state at the center of their preoccupations. The state is the almighty stakeholder in China, and everything else is submitted to this. the United States, which places at the center of the screen the profit of the enterprises, of the private enterprise and companies, and the European approach. The European approach, by contrast to the Chinese and the US, places at the center of the screen the human being, the human rights and the dignity of the human being. It's a different approach. Obviously, there is not a clear-cut differences between the three approaches, but there is a special point in underlying these different approaches by China, the US, and Europe, because they have to be complemented each other, and we have to decide which role for the European Union lies ahead of us. The first danger, the first risk and menace that is confronting us, to my mind, is the risk of decoupling, the risk of decoupling the cyberspace into different spheres of influence around the United States and around China. That means a lot of things. That means that there will be different regulations, that will be different harmonizations of standards, of international standards, of digital technologies, and different technical specifications. If there is not a real international political effort to counter this development, we can face in the near future a total decoupling of the cyberspace into these two different spheres of influence, which will be a disaster for all of us, for all the international stakeholders, and especially for us Europeans, because we will be in no man's land in this decoupling, disaggregation of the global cyberspace. That's why we Europeans, Spaniards and Bulgarians as well, indeed, we had to do our utmost in order to avoid this dangerous development of decoupling of the cyberspace. We consider that the cyberspace from the outset was a good asset in order to increase the economic development of societies, of countries, and the development also of the freedom of innovation of human beings, of individuals. If we don't consider this as such, I think that all of us, we will be losers in this struggle. That's why we have to protect the cyberspace and artificial intelligence, indeed, as a common public good. It has to be protected, it has to prevail upon the state different interests. In this playground, which is the role of the European Union, I think that everybody agrees that the European Union and the member states were a reference when it comes to regulations and global governance. We have set down quite a wide range of regulations, of directives, of concerning the cyberspace and artificial intelligence. But we Europeans, as such, we lack competitional cutting edge when it comes to industrial and technological platforms. I think we cannot compete at this point in time with the 5 or 6 big American industrial and technological platforms and the Chinese. We have some way to catch up, and we have to be intelligent enough to identify where we have an added value as Europeans in order not to compete with the Americans and with the Chinese in all the fronts at the same time. It will be the best recipe for a failure. I think that we have to be intelligent enough to pick up in which particular realms we Europeans, we have a cutting edge and advantage, competitive advantage at the international level. That is the point in which the member states, we are negotiating a European Union strategy on artificial intelligence, which is in the making, as you know. We think that we could have this already done and prepared and issued in next year, 2022, which means we mean by this European strategy on artificial intelligence to promote the innovation, the investment, to ensure the security of the communications, and to protect, last but not least, to protect the human rights, the human dignity, and to control and supervise the use of artificial intelligence, so that at the end of the day, the final resource is the human being and not the machine. I think it has to be made clear from the European point of view that the final decision, the final political decision, has to be taken by a human being and not by a machine. That encompasses, as you can imagine, a lot of ethical issues, a lot. And we know as well that the regulation capacity of member states and the European Union and international organization as large is lagging behind the speed, the breakneck speed of the technical developments in artificial intelligence and of the digital age at large. But anyway, we have to pay special attention to these ethical issues that need to be addressed by the international law. At the beginning, probably by soft law recommendations in the United Nations, the first committee of the United Nations, but probably in the second stage, also hard law with binding effects. Spain, my country, has already approved a national strategy on artificial intelligence last December 2020, in the framework of a plan which is called Spain Digital 2025, which was launched in July 2020. This artificial intelligence strategy already foresees and provides for 600 million euros for the development of a practical application of artificial intelligence in Spain. In addition to this, we think that as a country, we are at the forefront of the human rights concerning artificial intelligence, because we have already approved last July 2021, a Charter of Human Rights in Artificial Intelligence realm. It is something that very few countries have already approved, and we said we have decided that the approval of this Charter of the human rights in the realm of artificial intelligence will be a reference for the rest of our European friends and in the NATO as well. In addition to this, and I think that we will have the opportunity to talk about that down the road in this seminar, the ethical issues of the artificial intelligence applications, it is of utmost importance. The OECD has already put forward 5 principles for artificial intelligence development, which respect human rights, which assures or guarantees the respect of human rights, which has been endorsed by the G20 in the last meeting, and as well UNESCO has during the next general conference, which will take place next month in November, will approve a regulatory instruments for the digital dimension of artificial intelligence. As well, the European Council is already working on the issue, but we have to keep in mind that artificial intelligence can be a very powerful instrument if we are able to use it for the benefit of the human beings, of the nations, and of the international community. Has a lot of risks and menaces. I have been pointed out some of them. It's not an exhaustive list, and I think we'll have the opportunity now in our discussions to go down some of these menaces and risks. But we have no alternative. Artificial intelligence is the next horizon of our technological development. We have to compete with the Chinese and the Americans, great platforms, and we have as well to cooperate with them when necessary. This is a multi-pronged approach from the European point of view in which Spain wants to play an outstanding role. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. What I wanted to ask you actually, because you touch upon briefly this issue, do you think that Europe, I mean European Union and the individual member country, do we have actually all leverages and assets to streamline the process of developing systems? Some would say that Europe is good in regulating, in drafting strategies, but if you take the 10 biggest companies which are developing AI-based solutions, there is no single European company there. How do you think we shall, approach this issue, this more practical issue?
Thank you. I think that I have also made reference in my introductory remarks to this particular point, but the question is very, very, very pertinent. Obviously, Europe is a reference when it comes to regulating on the governance of the cyberspace of the artificial intelligence and the new disruptive technologies. That is something that it is broadly agreed. But we all know that the referees that don't win matches. The referees are important, but the matches are won by the forwards that score goals. And that's why we also have to develop big international digital platforms. Obviously, we have some of them. We have Nokia, we have Ericsson, which are of international dimension, but probably they cannot compete with the big American ones or the Chinese ones. When you ask me what can be done in the near future, I think that I have also pointed out before, I think we have to pick up in which particular realms, in which particular sectors the European Union has an added value. I am thinking about commerce and trade. We have a very, very good advantage there. Transportation, digital economy, energy, culture. In these realms, I think that we could apply in artificial intelligence with vengeance and with an advantage as well with our competitors. We have some weaknesses that we have to accept and we have to admit in order to overcome these gaps concerning, for instance, the microchips. We don't have the microchips are produced, most of them by Taiwan and South Korea. We have also a good company in the Netherlands, which is very competitive at the international level, but we are more consumers than producers of semiconductors or microchips, which is of utmost importance for the development of the new disruptive technologies. Then, to put it in a nutshell, we have to identify in which sectors still Europe has an opportunity to be at the forefront of developments in new technologies, to invest massively in this, and to be competitive. Second, we have to mobilize public and private capital. The public capital is not enough. I think that 80 or more, or 85% of the investment in the new disruptive technologies come from the private sector, and that's why we have to make up a very environmentally friendly scenario for public and private partnership in which high-risk capital is attracted. In Europe as a whole and in different countries, we don't have such a microcosmos of startup companies as the Americans or the Israelis have. That's why it's another weaknesses we have to come up with, how to mobilize public and private partnership, high-risk capital to bring up a startup environment.
Yeah, thank you, Ambassador. I will ask the same question later on to Mr. Joachim Katawa, but now I would like to invite our Bulgarian speaker, Mariana Tudorova, who is a scientist, but also futurologist. She wrote many books and articles, and she's one of the influencers in Bulgaria when it comes to the artificial intelligence. And it's a great pleasure, Mariana, to have you with us today.
It's my great pleasure too. Thank you for having me on board today, dear Jordan, dear Excellencies, dear guests. Let me first share my presentation because I have prepared it for you. I hope you can see it.
Yes, we see it.
Okay, so let's start. Definitely the strongest tool of AI is its transformational potential and its ability to disrupt all human life spheres. What I mean, AI can disrupt each sphere that we are starting our life until our death. Probably most of you know that AI is already engaged into embryo pre-selection in vitro procedures. It is not officially allowed. It's only a scientific project because it raises many ethical concerns, but pre-selection of human embryos is connected to AI and calculating our genetical material and predisposition. Of course, the second important field is education, and AI is also engaged in education because there are many platforms with facial recognition systems that analyze our facial expression and could say what are our cognitive abilities or difficulties when we read something. And there are also a lot of robots that are engaged in teaching and education, virtual and augmented reality classroom, 3D printers, and etc. But probably the sphere that would be mostly disrupted is the labor market and the future of jobs, because even with what we have now, which is artificial narrow intelligence, which is one purpose field, AI could process a great amount of information in a specific field and could provide decisions. It calculate the information, but it could not understand it. And this is the artificial narrow intelligence. And the artificial general intelligence probably would appear in 20 years, and it will have cognitive abilities and consciousness and sentience. We are not sure that we will get to this project, but most of the technological optimists expect that to be a reality in 2040, and of course, artificial superintelligence, which will surpass our in any case. So we are now talking only artificial narrow intelligence. So even with this achievement, a lot of professions would be transformed, and a lot of them would disappear. But we don't have a time to discuss it now. We can also say that longevity and healthcare systems will be transformed and disrupted, but probably in another discussions. I would like to put my attention on geopolitics. It undoubtedly changes the concept of geopolitics and security. And as the previous speaker mentioned, China is already trying to build a system of global technological governance, starting with its own state machine, which must operate on the basis of algorithms. They are tending to put their state machine and their administration on algorithms, blockchain-based platforms, etc. And the ultimate goal is to reformat the whole world according to the algorithmic model imposed by China. And this is a kind of engineering of domination, and it does not follow the path of war, but the water, which slowly but surely volumes and absorbs everything in its path according to Taoism. And of course, this could spill over into political domination. From research perspective, China has become a world leader in AI publications and patents. In 2016, under the presidency of Obama, the Asian country has already surpassed America in AI research and quantitative terms. As a partial response to this backlog, in February 2019, President Trump ordered an increase in research on this issue, but this could not be achieved just with order. We need governmental subsidies to research centers for that. And for Vladimir Putin, artificial intelligence is at the heart of the struggle for technological leadership and a field of global competition. According to him, as my colleague already said, His Excellency, who has a monopoly on artificial intelligence, will also have world domination. And the most powerful geopolitical advantage is the dominance in the supply of software products and artificial intelligence through which to collect data. Because as you know, the data today is the fuel of our time, or even the goal of our time. The more we have the data, the more we can teach AI in different capabilities and in different realms. China has begun, China has begun collecting vast amounts of data through its social credit system, in which an individual is rewarded or punished according to their behavior. For now, it is used more to control companies, but it's expanding to individuals. And you can see some examples here. If a woman is breastfeeding his or her child, she will get 300 points. If a person publish governmental friendly content in the social media, it will also be rewarded. And in the opposite, if there's some participation in protests or not regularly paying taxes, people would be taken of their credits and they could not apply for credits, or their children could not visit kindergarten. So we see this model, how China started to reform its own governance and trying to somehow influence and to provide algorithms to the whole world, and then to try to get this kind of leadership. But of course, probably the most important accent here is the influence of AI on the military sphere and the future of wars. We can predict a massive penetration of new technologies in intelligence, logistics, strategy, combat operation, and even decision making. And this is the way to establish a new era of the so-called hyperwar. Several scenarios here are possible. The combat operations are led by robots, which are directed by human commanders and later programmed for certain purposes similar to autonomous vehicles. Their powers may be extended to cover the field of nuclear weapons. And currently in the States, in the Pentagon, this is one of the most important debates. Should AI have in the future access to nuclear weapons? For the United States, weapons based on AI are strategy for repositioning against Russia, China, and the space weapons, because the space weapons is also another very important sphere of influence. We also can predict that all of the military tools such as tanks, planes, submarines, missiles, drones would be connected with AI systems. But even the most intelligent AI cannot assess the social and political context of the battle, which in some cases can lead to uncontrollable increase and escalation. The US Department of Defense works under the motto that a war of the future cannot be waged with the instruments from the last century. That's why, unlike the EU, the United States doesn't want to ban autonomous and semi-autonomous weapon systems, and it is clearly described in a directive from 2012. China and Russia are also preparing to be leading forces in the field of defense and security. And to this group, we can add Great Britain, Israel, and South Korea. And in the midst of competition between these countries, AI will be applied to every military aspect: logistics, intelligence, goal setting, and battle management. And another interesting debate is on the use of smart algorithms in command and control systems. Nowadays, these systems are highly dependent on radio and satellite programs that connect the control centers to battlefields. And experts fear that the speed of the exchange will be so fast that commanders will have a hard time analyzing combat reports and sending adequate commands in a timely manner. If the military is unable to cope effectively with this speed, it is most likely that they will delegate the power to analyze the situation of the AI machine themselves. Therefore, the US Congressional Research Center conducts that AI algorithms will be able to provide commanders with reliable recommendation for action. And such development will continue, and AI will enhance the control and command systems from robots, supersonic missiles, faster than the speed of sound, electromagnetic weapons, high energy lasers. And when these weapons are combined with AI, they can successfully counter any nuclear attack too. But the fear of losing control of atypical rapid risk would also means that we are dehumanizing our military control. And then we have to ask, can machines make more accurate choices than humans? Certainly they can process a significant amount of information for instant period of time, as well as draw arguments for or against an emotionless and irrational environment. But they can also make military mistakes, and probably most of you have heard about the decision of Colonel Stanislav Petrov, who avoided the Third World War by neglecting the awareness of some machine. What is happening in interior security? AI can be applied in gunfire detecting. AI filters the noises in the ambience and detects the noise of blasts. And this AI also makes data extraction and data prediction. That means that it can also say some probabilities for gunfire or bomb explosion on a certain venue. Can we trust such an AI? The short answer is yes. Can we take the data as evidence? No. And
Mariana, may I ask you to take 2 to 3 minutes more for your presentation? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, yeah, because I want to touch so many spheres, so I will just pass through the rest of the slides. So you see AI is engaged in gunfire detection, face recognition, and recognition of license plates of different vehicles. AI can predict future crime reports because it analyzes data. It also can predict if an individual will commit a crime before it happens by analyzing his behavior and body language. AI, of course, is engaged in cybersecurity, but I believe that the next colleague will speak more in details about that. AI could detect human women trafficking, money laundering, cryptocurrencies frauds. Of course, it can help to fight with deepfake technologies and anti-terrorism approaches. But also, what is very important, please pay attention to this slide. AI is also participating in crime because the malicious agents could use it for fake content, disrupting control systems. They even can hack nuclear power plant. Here is a list of possible threats. And last but not least is that human in the future can be hacked because you know about the project of Elon Musk. He is tending to put this kind of device in our next to our brain to realize the project of Neuralink. But this is a kind of chip of informational transformation, and it could be hacked in the future because in our health systems, in terms of prevention, all of us will be will count on the so-called wearables, careables, insidables. These are devices that will measure our health parameters and make report about our health on daily basis. And that would be very helpful for our health, but this also opens the door for us to be hacked. So AI could help, but also could be a risk for our personal security. With that, I want to finish. Of course, we have to consider all the ethical aspects, but I guess we will discuss that later in the discussion. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you, Mariana. You outlined a lot of aspects of AI. Obviously, it's a huge topic. We cannot exhaust it in one or even more seminars like this. But the next presentation is very much linked to what have been said by you. We have Mr. Joaquin Catala, who will speak about AI in defense. He is from the Directorate General of Armaments and Material in the Spanish Ministry of Defense. Mr. Catala, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Jordan. I would like to, first of all, to thank the Spanish and Bulgarian authorities for providing me the opportunity to give this presentation, and I would like to make the first advertisement in which I am trying to focus more on particular cases that in a general approach in order to show some of the capabilities that we are trying to deliver to our armed forces and to provide also to our allied countries. At our directorate, we deal with the Spanish industry of defense, which, as you may know, is an industry which is consolidated and has a clear export mentality. As the ambassador has already mentioned, Spain has approved his own strategy on artificial intelligence in December 2020, and has also a science and technology strategy which is aligned with the European Union strategy. On the defense sector, we also have a coordination instrument which is derived of this strategy, which is the strategy on research and innovation technology applied to defense. We usually couple this strategy with our science and AI strategies. We try to focus on obtaining technological demonstrators, meaning that we don't want to have really develop products until they have been tested, approved, and accepted by our armed forces as a driver of capability. This is important because in the field of artificial intelligence, we are still, or at least it's our opinion, far from the artificial general intelligence concept that has mentioned Ms. Tudorova at her presentation. We are focusing now in obtaining some demonstrators of which could be this artificial narrow intelligence problems. The idea is that we think that by gaining some experience on developing artificial intelligence solutions that help us or help our military to solve some problems that they already have, we will gain traction in order to deliver a real capacity based on real demands of the military. That's why I just emphasize that what I am going to present, it's the result of research and development projects, which are TRL 6 or 7 that are trying to jump into the TRL 8 applications. And I also would like to show you, I understand that this is known by the audience, but what we understand by an artificial intelligence system at the moment. We think that artificial intelligence is based in models which try to get an information from previous existing data sets. This is important because this gives an importance of what the so-called the chain value of data can deliver to our society. And once we gather these data sets and we label them, we carry out the training of the models in order to help them to help us to predict the success of the predictions of a general problem. And afterwards, once the model is developed, then we are able to, using new cases which are not part of this data set, to elaborate to give some precisions that help us to know with sufficient confidence what is already going. We understand that this is the approach in which we, on the future, may build some general capabilities, these cognitive capabilities that you were suggesting for. The first experience that I want to present is based in the topic of images recognition. We also have artificial intelligence projects in other fields like cyber defense that is going to present the next speaker, but also in other areas like predictive maintenance, voice analysis, and on other issues. On images, I'm going to focus my presentation because I think that it's really visual. It shares some elements with technologies that are already existing in the civil market, and I think that this helps the comprehension. And I think that it can help you to understand both the power of what we are trying to deliver. On this project, which is labeled SETA, it's Satellite Artificial Intelligence, we try to focus on open satellite images, meaning that these are images that, of satellite that exist on the internet. The goal of the project was to give our intelligence analysis a tool that helped them to improve their workflow, meaning that some alerts on naval situations will be available, but the use of OSINT techniques, which are available on the internet. This has been a 2-year project with a significant budget, and we are basing it on success models, which have been defined by real operatives. You can see here some tests on ship detection on the area of the Strait of Gibraltar that we used as a first demonstrator. And this is something which is based on satellites which are available on the internet, and it's a product which is available and commercialized by a Spanish company. The second project that I want to deliver is to show you, is the Custodes Project. This project is based on the existence of a lot of sensors, meaning that we understand some UAVs or some cameras placed on UGVs as sensors that can gather information and can be also analyzed and even shared in a warfare multi-dominus condition. What we gathered was we gathered a lot of images from our UAV means based on the Spanish Army forces, and carried out this artificial intelligence setup in order to be able to select automatically vehicles, infrastructures, personnel in some areas in order to tackle what the normal activity of an analyst in front of a screen would be. We also deliver it as a computer-based application, and it's already available with the support of the University of Jaén and Granada. I want to show you, I think that I have plenty of time to explain myself, what would be also the bottlenecks and limitations that we are going to face. We are seeing that we have to make these projects in order to make our military conscious of the value of the data that they already are gathering for other purposes. If we are able to collect these data sets and to put them on value, we have a really strong tool to launch, improve, and evolve these models in order to get some applications that can reduce the time of normal intelligence analysis in a 90%, as we have the number of presence of enough images in order to carry out these trainings. And we are making research on the use of simulators in order to generate these images and to know what can be improved. I also want to know, but I cannot show it in the presentation by means of classification, that Spain has also a dedicated satellite for military purposes, and we also have some projects in order to exploit these radar images and to gather similar technologies in order to improve our military capacities. I hope to have delivered you what we are doing, and I thank you very much for the time that you have conceded to me. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. If you may stop sharing, yeah. Or I did it on your behalf. Very important aspects related to use of AI in practical terms in defense. I think it might be useful of linking you to our Ministry of Defense to continue sharing this. Good practices. Now we have actually one last speaker. Unfortunately, he wanted to be live on this discussion, but I will play a very short video because the topic of AI and cybersecurity is very important. As you know, we have to be sure that our algorithms functions properly, and that input data is not manipulated, because either of these two being affected or attacked, this can cause, of course, losing even control of AI. So please be patient. I am sharing. It's a very short 10-minute presentation, but by our colleague expert on cybersecurity.
It is my pleasure and honor to participate in this event. I would like to thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity of sharing the outcomes of the research of my group, the research group in cryptology and information security, which is part of the Institute for Physical and Information Technologies, which is part of the Spanish National Research Council. The Spanish National Research Council is the largest research institution in Spain, and it comprises research in the areas of health, society, and matter. In this talk, I'm going to highlight that in this very moment, we have to address the connection between these areas and the hybrid domains defined by the interconnection of this area. In this very moment, our institution has just published a set of white papers on the more challenging topics in research, and in the concrete case of artificial intelligence and cybersecurity, there is a concrete chapter about the interleaving between artificial intelligence and cybersecurity, which has been called smart cybersecurity. Smart cybersecurity comprises the study of artificial intelligence, electronics, system control, software engineering, operating and systems and networks, statistics, information theory, and cryptography. And for the sake of organization, we have a structure of our work around 4 main challenging points. The first one, and according to the mandates by the European Digital Media Observatory, is concerned with fighting misinformation about science. The second one is, according to the European Union Cybersecurity Act, will be dealing with the imposition of security by default along the computing system by leveraging artificial intelligence. The third one is going to be conducted in order to create a formal model for adversarial machine learning and to foster all the different functionalities and the frameworks necessary to properly address the main challenges associated to the Digital Market Act and the Digital Services Act. And finally, the fourth commitment identified in the smart cybersecurity topic is the one related to the properly protection of privacy in the area of big data and artificial intelligence. Regarding misinformation, we have to take into account that right now it's very difficult to discern what is the origin of a specific piece of information. So we need to overcome the classic idea that it is possible to validate content veracity regarding the origin of a set of data, or the set of a group of news, or any kind of information. So in order to properly address the big deal regarding the misinformation, we need to foster interdisciplinary solutions that should enclose professionals and researchers from the area of information technology, social sciences, and other different areas that are involved in the fabrication of information and the proper sharing of this information. And this is very important in the specific case of news as a commodity in the civil space, but it is also a very important concern regarding national security. We have to take into account that right now we are in a continuous cyber warfare scenario. So in this cyber warfare scenario, information is fabricated in order to conduct information operations and to construct the so-called set of hybrid threats. So this is very important for the resilience of our society to have a proper policy and a proper methodology to address this new type of security and safety threats. It has to be addressed in the very context of information production and sharing, but also in the way we are designing, implementing, and validating our technologies, our information and communication technologies. It is not possible to have a healthy and resilient society without a proper implementation of information and communication technologies. We have to take into account that the production of any single information and communication technology involves a very complex chain of production with a lot of different actors. According to the European Processor Initiative and according to the recently published Alliance for Microchip Production in Europe, we have to try to develop secure devices from hardware to the application level. In the very context of the H2020 project, SPEARS, secure production of information communication technologies rooted in silicon, we are going to address the production of these devices from the so-called root of trust in order to leverage this root of trust and to conduct the production of secure and trustworthy devices. This is very important in this very topic of cybersecurity and the interleaving of cybersecurity with artificial intelligence. And if we are not conducting an effort in order to integrate the production from the hardware level to the application level, we can have problems related to the implementation of the final product, to the behavior of the end user, or to the flow implementation on specific measures related to authentication and authorization controls. We also have to take into account that implementation is a very complex task, and in many occasions we have side effects that can be exploited by an attacker. So we need to devise and implement integral solutions in order to properly consider what are the specific scenarios where the technology is going to be applied, and how we can react if we detect any kind of security problem. In other words, we need to build up a proper framework for the integration of business into the requirement imposed by law and the possibility that technology provides. In order to conduct such a commitment, first we need to define in a proper way the requirements that our system must fulfill. We need to define in a proper way how the attackers are going to try to get a benefit from our system. So it requires a proper identification of the application context. And finally, we need to foster the proper creation of standards and certification procedures. This has to be complemented, this has to be improved by means of adequate models for the communication tunnels. Here is very important the development of specific measures by means of artificial intelligence in the broad spectrum regarding the implementation of concrete machine learning techniques, but also by leveraging data mining and other aspects based on statistics and automatic decision making or automatic decision taking. Regarding the proper identification of attackers and regarding the proper definition of communication channel, we have to take into account that attackers are evolving these days. So it's very complex to discern which is the proper way of modeling this kind of attacks. We can have a classic identity frauds, we can have different versions of intrusion, we can have spam or phishing attacks, and we can have a lot of plenty different ways of conducting the production of malware. Right now we have to take into account that cybercrime should be interpreted as another additional commodity. What I mean is that in this very context, we have something like cybercrime as a service. Somebody can contract people in order to conduct cyber attacks. And so this is something we should take into account. Artificial intelligence can help to model this kind of new complexity, to tackle in a proper way this conundrum. But also we have to take into account that artificial intelligence can be also exploited by attackers. For example, by constructing evasion attacks and other more sophisticated ways of getting benefits from information systems. Adversarial machine learning is intended to somehow model this more sophisticated way of attacking information systems. And in our institution, the Spanish National Research Council, we have a specific H2020 project, the CyBECO, which is concerned about the definition of adversarial machine learning models in order to properly address the new threats, and also to ponder the risk we have when we try to protect our system and when we try to construct adequate ways of sharing information. Digital identity management is a cornerstone point here in the way of constructing proper models of utility and privacy. We have to distinguish in this very context the capability of performing identification from processes linkability and procedures traceability. If we are able to distinguish these three different functionalities, then we can update the electronic identification and authentication trust services, which is the regulation in the European Union, and to conduct a proper reconfiguration of the digital scenario in order to implement the two different acts. The first one, the Markets in Crypto Asset Regulation, and the second act, the Digital Markets Act. This is part of the work we have been performing in the context of the Cinnamon project, which is a project targeted at the configuration of secure future generation internet. So this is a very important topic for our research group, and it's going to be part of our work in the coming years. As I has explained before, we can distinguish between linkability. It means that we need to perform a specific method in order to relate two different operations. This is a specific functionality. Traceability is a specific functionality where we are able to conduct a specific study of a specific dynamics. So we can derive the path behind a certain behavior. Traceability is different from linkability, and linkability and traceability are different from identification. If we are able to provide these three functionality differently, not as a whole, we can adapt conventional digital signatures, and we can construct different digital signatures that are, for example, necessary to implement e-voting and e-coexistence. If we are able to provide as a specific task and a specific functionality, linkability, we will be able to conduct, for example, the implementation of fair anonymous communication. This is a very important concern, to have fairness in anonymous communication. And also, if we are able to implement traceability without linkability and without identification, then we can construct privacy-respectful platform, for example, for e-commerce. And we can provide the people with means that are going to give them offers specifics to promotions specific to their profile without knowing which is the specific identity behind a certain activity. This is a very important topic, for example, regarding the configuration of the digital market in Europe. And this is the main guidelines we are covering right now in the very context of the smart cybersecurity in the Spanish National Research Council. It has been a pleasure for me to highlighting the main challenges in order to implement such a goal. If you have any kind of question, any kind of doubt, please contact me through my email or my website. Thank you.
This was Mr. David Arroyo from the Spanish National Research Council. Incredibly important issue of cybersecurity and AI. Now, as we started a little bit later, I will give 10 more minutes for Q&A. I see there is one question who goes to Mariana. It is about ethical aspects of AI and treating, if I see correctly. And after all questions, I will give 1 or 2 minutes to our speakers for their concluding remarks. So please, Mariana.
We can provide several examples. The police department in LA and some Indian cities use face recognition system to detect some criminals because they have a very strong network of cameras all over the city infrastructure. But AI is taught with data that we are providing, and it somehow reproduces the biases we have. So when the policeman asks AI who might be the criminal for something that happened on a specific spot in the city, it always supposes that these are colored people, Black people, or people from the Latin American minority. And this is not based on statistics, because white people are committing more crimes than Black people and Latinos, but this just reproduces our prejudice and biases. So we need to clean this because it's not correct and it's not a good tool. When people are using AI to translate on like more than 180 languages, we don't find the need anymore to study languages, and it can diminish our cognitive abilities because it's proven by functional fMRI that our brain cortex is not engaged when we don't learn languages and only use the translation. And of course, in the military aspect, once we assume that robots and artificial intelligence is used for analyzing the battlefield, we cannot compete with AI. So we have to delegate our decision making also to AI, and we dehumanize the warfare. It might be good, but that means that it will become a general rule. And last but not least, when we collect health data using different parameters, blood pressure, analyzing of our saliva, of our facial expression. Some companies may collect sensitive data, and there is also doubt that in the States, a lot of healthy and social security funds use that data to predict what would be the health system in the future. But this is our own right to keep this data for our own purposes. Here in Europe, we are in good regulation, but this doesn't mean that China, which is ethical free zone, or United States will use that. So in continuation with your question, Europe can be a leader in ethical framework, providing ethical framework, and trying to push the other countries to obey these rules. So we definitely can be leaders in providing ethical codex, ethical framework, because unfortunately we cannot compete with the capacity of states or Chinese companies that are developing AI.
Do you think that this cohesion in approaches towards AI is achievable on a global scale? This is also a question, I think, for Mr. Nicolás de la Parte. What do you think, Mariana?
It's a matter of global consensus. There are a lot of researchers and scientists that believe that we can codify a single ethical system and teach AI to obey and use it, but we are, as different civilizations, don't have a single ethical system. Western Union and Western countries, Anglo-Saxonian countries, has one ethical system, Eastern has another, Islamic countries has third. So we have firstly achieved a consensus. What are the minimum rules we have to obey using AI, and then to build on that.
Let me see if there are other questions or comments from the audience. Otherwise, we will go to Mr. Nicolás de la Parte. Yes, please.
I think that I agree entirely with what my predecessor has been pointing out, but we have not to forget some practical rules. I mean, in the cyberspace, and as a result also in the artificial intelligence, has been agreed that all the international law applies. This is something that has been accepted by all the cultures, all the sensitivities, and all the ethical approaches. That means the international law, the human rights, the Charter of the United Nations, and the humanitarian law applies to the cyberspace and also applies to the artificial intelligence. This is the base agreed by everybody, upon which we had to build up a closer approach. And it's true that the ethical aspects of the artificial intelligence is one of the main ones. But we have also to accept that it is very difficult to regulate with binding capacity international laws. So far, we had also only been able to cobble together soft law recommendations of the best uses of the cyberspace and the best uses also of the artificial intelligence. We also agree on the difficulty of the law of the regulating capacity of the international community to run after the technological developments on the ground. That is something we have also to accept. The regulating capacity will always be slower than the technological capacity to develop new technologies and new applications. That's why we should be smart enough, wise enough to create a framework, a general framework, which is valid for every development in the near future. This international regulating framework should be ideally agreed upon in the framework of the United Nations, obviously, in the first committee of the General Assembly. If it's not possible, and now, as you know, there are two initiatives, one led by the United States, the working group of international experts, and another working group led by Russia, the Open Working Group. I think that both initiatives, the one led by the US and the one led by Russia, are converging. And we hope, we Europeans, that we will be able to bring up a single effort of the international community as such to regulate the maluse and the bad practices in the cyberspace and also in the artificial intelligence. But my first remark concerning this particular point is artificial intelligence has a very specific nature, which makes it quite difficult to regulate, because artificial intelligence means that we are going to deliver or to convey to some robotic mechanisms some of the decision-making processes so far adopted by the human being. And also that the artificial intelligence, the military use of the artificial intelligence would be able to take decisions that so far are taken by the human being. That's why I underscore in my initial remarks that one of the main features of the regulation of artificial intelligence is that at the end of the change has to be a human responsibility, not a robotic one. At the end of the chain, so the use of the artificial intelligence has to be always a human being taking the responsibility.
Yes, thank you, Ambassador. I have very last, I think, question to Mr. Catala. Very briefly, if you may comment and answer on it. Do you have in your Ministry of Defense a special unit or persons who actually follow the development of AI and looking how the AI solutions can be implemented in the military sphere for operations, for capability, for maintenance, logistics, etc., etc.? Please, very briefly, if possible. Yes.
Sure. At the Spanish Ministry of Defense, we have a dedicated unit for the observation of the technological trends, not only in Spain, but also at European and international level. We try to gather what is going on the civil and the military foreign markets. And we try to gather the most interesting cases and translate them into demonstrations as the demonstrators as the one that I have shown.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me see if there are no questions. Any of our speakers, if you would like to say some final comments, otherwise we'll go to the finalization of this very interesting debate. I'm pretty sure that our participants got a lot of ideas and a lot of food for thought for the future work on this sphere. Once again, I would like to thank the Embassy of the Kingdom of Spain and personally Ambassador Alejandro Polanco Mata for contribution, for helping us and for working with us on making this event happen. I would like to thank very much Mr. Nicolas de la Parte, Mariana Tudorova, Joaquin Catala, and David Arroyo for their contribution, and I hope that we'll meet again pretty soon, further on building on today's discussions and ideas we gathered together. Thank you very much. I wish you very good day and hope to see you soon at our next events.
Jordan, you allow
yes.
me one word only.
Of course.
Reiterate my gratitude to the Sofia Security Forum and to convey you to make this not one short event, but the first of a series of future events in which we bilaterally would be engaged, not only concerning artificial intelligence as such, but also the new disruptive technologies, the cyberspace, the hybrid threats, and the misinformation and disinformation campaigns. I think that these new scenarios of potential conflict are worth a bilateral approach by Spain and Bulgaria.
I fully agree, and I'll take the responsibility to convey this message also to our Ministries of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of Defense, because it is important not only how we understand how we develop AI-based solutions, but also how we organize our cooperation, our work.
That's right.
Thank you very much once again to all participants, and have a very, very nice day.
Thank you very much to everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.